The night had an unusual stillness. Kylie Jenner stood at the balcony of her Hidden Hills mansion, staring into the endless spread of darkened hills. The moonlight kissed her skin, but the silence felt heavier than usual, almost deliberate, as if the world itself was holding its breath. For weeks she had felt something, an unease that clung to her no matter where she went. It wasn't exhaustion, though her life was exhausting. It wasn't stress, though the pressure of her fame and empire was always there. This was different. This felt like eyes, always on her. She shook the thought off, heading back inside. Stormi's laughter echoed faintly from upstairs, muffled by walls and distance, but it was comforting. Her daughter was safe, tucked away, far from whatever invisible weight Kylie carried on her shoulders. The air conditioning hummed faintly. She walked down the hall toward her living room, scrolling through her phone. But as she reached the center of the room, she froze. Her skin prickled. The lights above flickered, not the usual quick, harmless stutter, but a deep throbbing pulse. Like the house itself was alive and breathing, her phone screen blacked out. "Not again," she whispered to herself. It wasn't the first time this had happened. For days the house had been behaving strangely. Lights going out, electronics glitching, doors opening on their own. At first she'd laughed it off. Big house, bad wiring. But now it was happening too often. She set her phone down on the marble counter and turned toward the sound of a faint knock. The kind of knock too soft for the front door. This one came from inside the house. "Kylie?" Her breath hitched. The voice was faint, muffled, but it was her name. Stormi was upstairs, her nanny close by. Nobody else should be inside. "Kylie." The voice stretched, long and distorted, carrying a tone that didn't belong to anyone she knew. She grabbed a decorative candle holder, heavy, gold-plated, ridiculous as a weapon, but all she had. Her heartbeat slammed in her chest as she followed the faint knocking sound. It led her to the far hallway, toward the mirror room. She hated that room. It was her stylist's idea, a massive wall-to-wall mirror chamber where she tested outfits, lighting, and angles for shoots. But at night, when the house was quiet, the reflections didn't feel right. Sometimes, when she walked by quickly, she swore she saw her reflection turn its head a second later than she did. The knocking stopped. She stepped into the room. The mirrors greeted her from all sides, her face multiplied into infinite versions. Her own brown eyes stared back at her from 1,000 angles. But it wasn't comforting. It felt like an army of strangers. Then one of the reflections blinked. But she hadn't. Kylie stumbled back, nearly dropping the candle holder. She stared hard, scanning her faces. They all mirrored her perfectly. Except for one. In the farthest corner, a version of herself smiled. Her real lips hadn't moved. Her stomach turned to ice. She bolted, slamming the door shut behind her. The sound echoed through the vast halls. Upstairs, Stormi's laughter had stopped. "Stormi?" Kylie yelled, her voice sharp. No answer came, just silence. She ran upstairs, heart hammering, throwing open doors one after another until she found her daughter's room. Stormi was asleep in her bed, breathing peacefully, her nanny seated in the corner with a book. Everything looked normal. But as Kylie exhaled in shaky relief, she noticed something on the mirror above Stormi's dresser. A handprint, small, delicate, but smeared as if pressed from the inside of the glass. Kylie's phone buzzed suddenly in her pocket, startling her. She pulled it out. The screen had returned to life, a notification flashing. Unknown. Number. You can't keep ignoring her. Her throat went dry. She locked the phone, her fingers trembling. But before she could put it away, it vibrated again. Another message. Unknown number. She wants to come home. Her blood froze. Who was she? Kylie turned toward the nanny, trying to compose herself. "Did you touch that mirror?" The nanny looked up, confused. "No, Miss Jenner, why?" Kylie glanced back at the handprint, but her heart stopped again. It was gone. The glass was clean, as if nothing had ever been there. But Kylie knew what she saw, and deep down, she knew this wasn't going to stop. Sleep was impossible that night. Kylie lay awake in her massive bed, the curtains drawn tight, the glow of her phone screen lighting up her face as she scrolled aimlessly through social media. She wasn't really seeing any of it. Every laugh, every bikini picture, every brand announcement blurred together like static. All she could think about was the handprint. That awful, perfect little handprint pressed inside the mirror where no hand should ever be, and the message. She wants to come home. Her skin crawled just remembering it. By 3 in the morning, she finally shut her eyes, though her body stayed tense. When she drifted into sleep, it wasn't peaceful. It was jagged, haunted by fragments of sound and shadow. She dreamt she was walking through her mirror room again, except the reflections weren't her anymore. They were strangers. Pale versions of her face, lips stitched shut, eyes wide and unblinking. One by one, their heads turned toward her until the entire army of reflections stared straight at her. And then, in unison, they opened their mouths and whispered, "Mother." She shot awake with a gasp, her throat raw as if she'd screamed in her sleep. The clock read 4:11 a.m. The house was silent, too silent. Kylie sat up, every nerve alert. That's when she heard it, a faint shuffle, like small feet on the floor. She panicked. Stormi. Bolting out of bed, she rushed to her daughter's room, throwing the door open so hard it banged against the wall. The bed was empty. "Stormi!" she shouted, her voice breaking. Her nanny wasn't in the chair anymore either. Her pulse roared in her ears as she ran through the hallway. The shuffle of feet echoed from below. She charged down the staircase barefoot, the cold marble biting into her skin. At the bottom, she froze. Stormi was standing in the middle of the living room, completely still. Her tiny body faced the mirror wall. The lights above flickered with that same sick, throbbing pulse. "Stormi, baby," Kylie whispered, trying to steady her voice. She walked slowly, cautiously, as if approaching an animal. But Stormi didn't respond. She just lifted her arm and pointed at the mirrors. Kylie followed her daughter's gaze, and her stomach lurched. In the glass, Stormi's reflection wasn't pointing. It wasn't even still. The little girl inside the mirror was grinning, her mouth stretching far too wide, her eyes black pits. "No," Kylie whispered. She grabbed her daughter, scooping her up, but the air around her grew icy. Her breath fogged as she turned toward the stairs. Then her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look, but she did. Unknown number. "You can't keep her forever." Her chest tightened. Stormi stirred in her arms, finally snapping out of the trance. "Mommy?" she asked groggily. Kylie hugged her tight, trembling. "I've got you, baby." "Don't worry." But inside she knew worry was all she had. By dawn, she'd had enough. She called her mother. Chris answered on the third ring, her voice groggy but sharp. "Kylie? It's 5 in the morning. What's wrong?" I don't know how to explain it," Kylie stammered. "Something's happening in this house. The mirrors, the lights, Stormi." Chris sighed, the kind of sigh that held both exhaustion and irritation. "You're under stress. It's probably nothing." "It's not nothing, Mom," Kylie snapped, her voice cracking. There was a handprint inside the mirror. Inside. And Stormi, she was... Kylie faltered, unable to find words for the horror. Silence stretched on the line. Then Chris's tone shifted, low and serious. "Has it started again?" Kylie's heart stuttered. "What do you mean, again?" But Chris didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, "Pack a bag. Take Stormi. Come stay at my place for a while. I'll send a driver." Her words only made the terror worse. What did her mother know? What had she seen before? Kylie hung up, pacing the floor, mind racing. But when she glanced at the mirror again, her blood ran cold. Her own reflection hadn't moved. It was still standing there, staring at her, lips curling into that same smile she'd seen before. The driver arrived before sunrise. Kylie threw clothes into a duffel, barely able to think straight. Stormi was still drowsy, clinging to her stuffed bunny as Kylie buckled her into the SUV. She didn't tell the nanny anything. Truthfully, she didn't know what to say. The mirrors are alive wasn't exactly the kind of thing you explained over coffee. The drive to Chris's house was silent. Los Angeles slept under a dim pink sky, but Kylie's mind was a storm. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that reflection smiling at her, waiting. When they pulled up to Chris's mansion, the front door was already open. Chris stood there in her robe, a glass of wine in her hand, even though it was barely 6 a.m. Her face was pale, her eyes sharper than Kylie remembered. "Come in," Chris said quickly, ushering her daughter and granddaughter inside. The moment Kylie stepped into the foyer, she felt it. Safety. Not complete, but heavier walls, thicker silence. The mirrors here didn't feel the same. Still, she couldn't relax. Chris led her to the sitting room, shutting the doors tight. "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out," so Kylie did. The flickering lights, the handprint, the mirror smiling on its own, the text messages, Stormi's reflection turning monstrous. When she was finished, Chris leaned back, eyes glassy with a memory Kylie couldn't place. "It's her," Chris whispered. "Her who?" Kylie demanded. Chris hesitated, swirling her wine glass though she hadn't sipped from it once. Finally she said, "Your grandmother." "My mother," Kylie blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" "Grandma died before I was born." "She died," Chris said, her voice tight. "But she didn't stay gone." The air in the room seemed to sink, heavy and cold. Kylie stared at her mother, waiting for her to laugh, to say it was some twisted joke. But Chris's face was stone. "She practiced things," Chris continued. "Dark things. She believed mirrors were gateways, that they could hold pieces of people. She tried to bind herself to them before she died." Kylie's mouth went dry. "And you're saying she's haunting me? Why me?" Chris's eyes flicked toward the ceiling where Stormi's little footsteps padded above. "Because you have what she wants. A daughter. A bloodline. She always wanted control. Even in death." Kylie shook her head violently. No, this is insane." "Is it?" Chris shot back. "Haven't you noticed? It only started after Stormi was born. That thing in the mirror. It doesn't want you, Kylie. It wants her." The words stabbed like ice. Kylie's arms folded protectively over her chest, as if she could shield Stormi from something as intangible as a ghost. "You knew about this and never told me?" she hissed. "I thought I ended it," Chris snapped. "When I was younger, I sealed every mirror my mother had touched. But she's strong. She finds cracks, and now she's found yours." The silence between them stretched like a taut rope, ready to snap. Kylie's hands shook, her nails digging into her palms. "So what do we do?" she whispered. Chris hesitated again. "We destroy the mirrors. All of them. Before she crosses over completely." Kylie exhaled, her mind racing back to her mansion. Wall-to-wall glass, endless reflective surfaces. It wasn't just decoration. It was an invitation. Stormi's laughter drifted faintly down from upstairs, pure and sweet, and Kylie's throat tightened with dread. Then her phone buzzed on the table. Both women looked at it, frozen. The screen lit up with another message from the unknown number. "She's already here." The message glowed on Kylie's phone screen like a curse. "She's already here." Kylie's hand trembled as she turned the device face down, as if hiding it would erase the words. But Chris only stared at her, lips pressed tight. her knuckles white against her wine glass. "She's trying to scare you," Chris said flatly, though her voice lacked conviction. "Don't let her see your fear." "That's easy for you to say," Kylie snapped, her throat tightening. "It's not your kid she's after." Before Chris could respond, the lights flickered. A faint hum filled the air, low at first, then rising into a sharp, vibrating pitch that set Kylie's teeth on edge. The glass chandelier above them began to rattle. Kylie bolted to her feet. "Stormi!" They both rushed upstairs, hearts hammering. Chris surprisingly fast for her age. Stormi's door was ajar, a soft golden glow spilling into the hall. Kylie pushed it open and froze. Stormi sat on her bed, wide awake, her bunny doll clutched tight. She was staring at the mirror on the dresser, and in that glass, Kylie didn't see Stormi. She saw a withered old woman in her place. Gray skin, thin lips, eyes like oil. "Smiling, Mommy," Stormi whispered, not looking away from the glass. "The lady says she's family." Kylie's knees went weak. She lunged forward, scooping Stormi up, turning her away from the mirror. "Don't look at her, baby." Chris crossed the room and yanked the mirror from the wall, slamming it face down onto the floor. The glass didn't shatter. It groaned like something alive had been wounded. The air went icy. A shadow rippled across the ceiling, spreading like black water. "She's angry," Chris muttered, her voice tight. "She knows we're fighting back." Kylie clutched Stormi tighter. "Then fight harder." "What do we do?" Chris turned, her eyes sharp, decisive. "We burn the mirrors. All of them. Everyone she could be hiding in. That's the only way." The idea made Kylie's stomach churn. Destroying antiques was one thing, but the giant mirror walls in her own home, the priceless art pieces with reflective frames, they were worth fortunes. But one look at Stormi's frightened little face erased any hesitation. "Fine," Kylie said, her jaw clenched. "Then we start tonight." They returned to Kylie's mansion just after midnight, the house looming in the hills like a dark cathedral. Kylie carried Stormi in her arms, while Chris followed with a heavy duffel filled with tools. Hammers, duct tape, lighters, even bottles of gasoline. Kylie never thought she'd see her mother like this. Furious, determined, almost militant. But fear had stripped away her polished shell. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. They started in the mirror room. Kylie stood at the doorway, trembling, while Chris smashed one mirror after another with a hammer. Glass sprayed like rain, shards scattering across the floor. With each blow, the air grew heavier, colder, as though the house itself screamed. Stormi buried her face in Kylie's neck. "Mommy, stop!" "She's mad." Kylie kissed her hair. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." But as the final mirror fell, a new sound filled the air, low, guttural, like a growl. The shards on the floor began to move, scraping against one another, pulling together into a shape, a hand, thin, bony, crawling from the broken glass. Kylie's blood froze. "Mom!" she screamed. Chris spun around, her hammer raised. She smashed the crawling hand before it could fully form, glass exploding into dust. But the growl didn't stop. It came from deeper in the house, from everywhere. Suddenly, every mirror, every reflective surface, the windows, the glossy black tiles, even Kylie's phone screen, lit up with the same face. The old woman, smiling. "You can't hide her forever," the voice boomed, rattling the walls. "She is mine." Kylie's legs buckled. She held Stormi tighter, panic clawing at her chest. "What if we can't stop her?" Chris looked at her, her face pale but fierce. "Then we fight until our last breath." The house shuddered as if it had a heartbeat, and Kylie knew. This wasn't just a haunting. This was a war. The house felt alive now. Every wall groaned. Every window breathed. Every reflective surface shimmered faintly, as though watching them. Kylie's mansion, once her sanctuary, had become a trap. Chris handed her a lighter and a bottle of gasoline. No more hesitation. If you see glass, you burn it. Kylie gripped the bottle tight, her knuckles pale. She had built this life with her own hands. Every tile, every polished marble surface chosen for beauty. But what was beauty compared to her daughter's life? Stormi clung to her, whispering softly into her shoulder. "She's still here, Mommy. She won't leave." Kylie's chest tightened. "Not if I can help it, baby." They moved room by room, covering mirrors with cloths, smashing the ones too large to carry, dousing shards in gasoline, and setting them alight in metal bins dragged in from the garage. The flames hissed, filling the house with acrid smoke, but Chris insisted it was the only way. Every time glass shattered, Kylie swore she heard a scream, sometimes faint, sometimes so close it made her ears ring. By the time they reached the living room, Kylie's throat burned from smoke and fear. She set Stormi down in a chair, wrapping a blanket around her, and moved toward the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. Her reflection stared back at her, pale, sweaty, eyes wide. But then the reflection blinked out of sync again. This time, Kylie didn't freeze. She raised the hammer and swung. The window cracked, spiderwebbing outward. But instead of breaking, the glass bled. Thick black liquid oozed down the pane, dripping onto the white marble floor. Stormi screamed. The liquid pooled quickly, shaping itself into something with legs. A shadow peeled away from the window, standing upright. Its face a hollow cavity where a mouth should have been. Kylie stumbled backward, the hammer slipping from her hand. The shadow turned its faceless head toward Stormi. "No!" Kylie roared. She grabbed the hammer again and charged, swinging wildly. The hammer passed straight through the figure as if it were smoke, but the impact sent a ripple through its form. It shrieked, a sound that made her skull throb. Chris pulled Stormi into her arms. "It's not strong enough yet," she shouted over the noise. "It's feeding on fear." "Then what do we do?" Kylie cried, swinging again and again, each blow passing through the shadow but making it stutter. Before Chris could answer, the entity lunged. Not at Kylie. At Stormi, time slowed. The shadow's hands stretched impossibly long, claws curling as they reached for the little girl's face. Kylie dropped the hammer and sprinted, throwing herself between them. The claws raked across her shoulder, not slicing flesh but burning. White-hot fire seared straight into her bones. She screamed, collapsing to her knees. "Mommy!" Stormi shrieked, wriggling in Chris's arms. Kylie forced herself up, teeth clenched, vision swimming. She could barely stand, but rage fueled her. This thing wasn't taking her daughter. She snatched the gasoline canister, flipped the cap, and hurled its contents at the shadow. The liquid soaked its form, clinging unnaturally like it wanted to stay. Chris lit a match and tossed it. The shadow erupted in flame. It screeched, thrashing violently, flailing against the windows until the glass shattered outward into the night. The burning figure stumbled into the yard, shrieking as it dissolved into smoke and ash. Silence. Kylie collapsed to the floor, clutching her shoulder. The skin was unbroken, but the pain inside was unbearable, like something had burrowed beneath. Stormi broke free from Chris's arms and ran to her mother, sobbing. Kylie hugged her tightly, tears stinging her eyes. Chris knelt beside them, her face grim. "It's not gone. That was just a fragment. She's still in the mirrors, waiting." Kylie looked up, her voice trembling. "Then how do we kill her for good?" Chris hesitated, her eyes distant. "There's only one way. We don't just destroy her mirrors. We go into them. We face her where she lives." The thought made Kylie's blood run cold. But as she held Stormi, feeling the tiny body shaking in her arms, she knew she would walk through fire itself if it meant saving her child. The house was wrecked, glass shards everywhere, black stains on the floor, smoke clinging to the ceilings like soot. Kylie sat on the marble tiles with Stormi in her lap. rocking her back and forth, whispering soft words, even though her own voice trembled. Chris stood at the shattered window, her face set, her eyes far away. "We can't keep fighting fragments," she said finally. "She'll just keep finding ways back. The only way to end this is to go to her." Kylie looked up, horrified. "You mean inside the mirrors?" Chris turned, nodding slowly. "That's where she bound herself before she died. That's her home. If we destroy her there, she won't be able to crawl back." Kylie's stomach twisted. The idea felt impossible, insane. How? How do you even enter a mirror? Chris set down her wine glass on the broken mantel, her voice lowering to a near whisper. "With blood!" The word made Kylie's arms tighten around Stormi instinctively. "No!" she snapped. "Not hers. Not my daughter's. Not Stormi's," Chris said firmly. "Yours. Blood calls blood. You're her bloodline. Her doorway." Kylie swallowed hard, nausea rising. She looked at the reflective shards scattered around them. Already some were twitching, inching toward each other as though trying to reform. The entity was gathering again. "They didn't have time. What happens when I go in?" Kylie asked. "You'll see her," Chris said. "She'll try to trick you, to tempt you. You can't let her take anything. Your voice, your reflection, your name. If she does, she'll keep you there forever." Kylie's chest tightened, her arms still wrapped protectively around Stormi. "And if I don't make it out?" Chris's eyes softened just for a moment. "Then I'll raise her. I swear to you, I'll protect Stormi with my life." That answer didn't comfort Kylie. It terrified her. But there was no other choice. Chris gathered a large shard from the mirror room, one still slick with that strange black residue. She placed it upright on the floor, steadying it with books and broken wood until it stood like a jagged doorway. "Ready?" she asked. "No," Kylie whispered. Then, louder, "But I'll do it anyway." She kissed Stormi's head, her tears wetting the little girl's hair. "Mommy loves you, baby. More than anything." Stormi clung to her, small fingers gripping Kylie's shirt. "Don't go, Mommy." Her heart cracked, but Kylie forced herself to pull away. She pressed Stormi into Chris's arms, then turned back to the shard. Chris pricked Kylie's palm with a piece of glass. A bead of blood welled up, bright red against pale skin. She pressed it to the shard. The surface rippled. Kylie's reflection wavered, her face twisting and distorting like water. Then the reflection smiled, not with her lips, but with its own, crooked and cruel. The glass pulled. With one last look at Stormi, Kylie stepped forward, and the mirror swallowed her whole. The world on the other side was wrong. Kylie stumbled into darkness so thick it pressed against her skin. The air was damp, smelling faintly of rot and old iron. All around her stretched endless mirrors, tall as walls, reflecting endless versions of herself. But each one was wrong. Some were bruised, some burned, some with mouths stitched shut. One had hollow sockets where eyes should be. They pressed their hands against the glass, begging silently to be freed. Her chest tightened, panic clawing at her throat. Then she heard it. "Kylie." The voice was low, dragging, thick with mockery. An old woman stepped from the shadows, her skin gray and stretched, her lips peeling back to reveal blackened teeth. Her eyes glowed faintly, the same dark pits Kylie had seen in Stormi's reflection. Her grandmother. "Finally," the woman crooned. "You've come home." Kylie's fists clenched, her body trembling. "You're not my home. You're a parasite." The woman chuckled, the sound echoing from every mirror. "Such fire! I like that. But I don't want you, child. I want her, the little one. The future." Rage burned through Kylie's fear. "You'll never have her." The old woman's smile widened. "We'll see." And with a snap of her fingers, the mirrors shattered into life. From every pane of glass, twisted figures stepped out. Versions of Kylie, warped and mutilated, crawling, limping, screaming. They surged toward her in a swarm. Kylie had no weapon. No hammer, no gasoline. Just her bare hands and her will to protect her daughter. So she screamed, raw and furious, and ran straight at them. The first doppelganger slammed into her, its skin gray, its eyes empty. Kylie shoved it off, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Another came crawling on all fours, its mouth stretched too wide, drool spilling as it hissed. She kicked it square in the face, her foot landing harder than she thought possible. The mirror world didn't obey normal rules. Every swing, every kick felt amplified, driven by something beyond muscle, a raw force born of fear and fury. But there were too many. They surrounded her, reaching with twisted hands. One grabbed her arm, another clawed her hair. Their touch burned, the same way the shadow's claws had burned, not skin deep, but soul deep. Kylie screamed, thrashing violently, ripping herself free. She snatched up a shard of broken mirror from the ground, its edge jagged and gleaming. Without thinking, she drove it into the chest of the closest figure. It dissolved into smoke with a shriek. Her eyes widened. A weapon. She finally had a weapon. She swung the shard wildly, slicing through one, then another, each dissolving into mist as they fell. She was panting, drenched in sweat, but she kept going, her body running on pure adrenaline. The mirrors around her rattled, thousands of reflections watching, their faces twisted in agony. And above it all, her grandmother laughed. "You fight like an animal," the old woman crooned, stepping forward. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She floated just slightly above it, robes trailing like shadows. "But animals tire. You can't fight forever." Kylie wiped blood. Was it hers? From her cheek, her grip tight on the shard. "I don't need forever. I just need long enough to kill you." The woman's smile twisted, her eyes glowing darker. "Bold, but foolish. Look around you, child. You're already mine." And the mirrors changed. Stormi appeared in every reflection, but not her real daughter. Versions of her, crying, screaming, reaching for her mother. Some with bruises, some with hollow eyes. Kylie's breath hitched. "No." Her grandmother's voice slithered into her ears. "She'll suffer here forever, unless you give her to me. One offering, one sacrifice, and the rest of your bloodline will be free." Kylie's knees buckled. For a moment, just a moment, the temptation wormed into her mind. If she gave Stormi up, this nightmare would end. She could walk away. She could finally rest. But then she remembered her daughter's voice, small and scared, whispering, "Don't go." "Mommy." Rage surged through her veins, burning hotter than fear. "You'll never touch her," Kylie spat, standing tall. "You'll die in this prison you built." Her grandmother's smile collapsed into a snarl. "So be it." The mirrors shattered outward, shards rising into the air, swirling like a storm of knives. The old woman lifted her arms, and the shards twisted into claws, wings, a monstrous form of pure glass and shadow. Kylie gripped her shard tighter, her entire body trembling, but her eyes never left the monster. "For Stormi," she whispered, and she charged. The battle was chaos. Shards rained like meteors, slicing her arms, her legs. Every wound burned, but she didn't stop. She slashed at the beast, each strike sending ripples of smoke and screams through the air. The mirrors cracked and splintered with every hit, fragments of Stormi's crying face shattering and fading. The monster clawed her across the chest, throwing her into the wall. Pain exploded through her ribs. She could barely breathe, but she forced herself up. "You can't kill me!" The woman's voice thundered, echoing from every surface. "I am blood. I am reflection. I am forever." Kylie staggered, spitting blood, her shard still in hand. "Then I'll erase every reflection, even if it kills me." With the last of her strength, she hurled herself at the largest mirror, the one that showed her grandmother's true form. She plunged the shard into it, screaming with everything she had. The glass exploded in a blinding flash of light. The entire world shook, collapsing inward. The doppelgangers screamed, the monster shrieked, and Kylie felt herself falling into endless white. Back in the real world, Chris clutched Stormi. Both of them pressed against the far wall of the ruined living room. The mirror shard Kylie had entered glowed, cracks racing across its surface like veins of fire. Stormi cried, reaching for it. "Mommy!" Chris held her tighter, whispering a prayer she hadn't said in decades. Then, with a deafening crack, the shard shattered completely. Smoke poured out, and Kylie collapsed onto the floor, bloodied, trembling, but alive. The silence after the shattering was unbearable. Kylie lay on the marble floor, gasping for air, every inch of her body burning. Her clothes were shredded, her skin streaked with blood and soot, but she was breathing. "Mommy!" Stormi's voice cracked through the haze. Kylie forced her eyes open just as her daughter broke free from Chris's arms and ran to her. She pulled Stormi close, sobbing, clutching her so tight she feared she might break her little ribs. "I'm here, baby. Mommy's here," she whispered, her tears soaking Stormi's hair. Chris knelt beside them, relief washing over her usually composed face. "You did it," she said softly. "You made it back." For a moment, Kylie believed her. She let herself collapse into the comfort of her daughter's warmth. The faint smell of her shampoo. The reality of being home. But then she noticed it. The mirrors. Or rather, what was left of them. Shards were scattered across the room. Thousands of pieces glittering like stars on the floor. Each fragment still reflected something. Her face. Chris's. Stormi's. But in one shard, her reflection didn't move. Her chest tightened. She blinked. Her reflection didn't. Instead, it smiled. "No," Kylie whispered. The reflection raised its hand and placed it against the inside of the shard, a perfect deliberate motion, and slowly, one by one, the other shards followed. Hundreds of tiny Kylies, each smiling, each pressing their hands to the glass. Stormi whimpered, hiding her face in her mother's chest. Chris's expression hardened. "She's not gone. She's fractured. Pieces of her are still here." Kylie felt the weight of those words sink deep into her bones. She had fought, bled, nearly died, and still her grandmother clung on. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice cracking. Chris looked her dead in the eye. "We destroy every piece, every shard, and we never stop, because as long as one survives, she survives." Kylie looked down at the floor. Hundreds, maybe thousands of shards glittered back at her, each with that cursed smile. Her entire body trembled. She tightened her grip on Stormi, her voice breaking but fierce. "Then we'll destroy them all." The next days blurred into smoke, fire, and exhaustion. Every shard was collected, every reflective surface smashed, burned, ground to dust. Kylie and Chris worked side by side, bloodied and sleepless, while Stormi was kept away, her innocence shielded as best it could be. But no matter how much glass they burned, the fear never left. Every polished floor, every darkened window, every phone screen could hold a shadow. Kylie found herself flinching at her own reflection, never trusting that the woman looking back was truly her. At night, she held Stormi in bed, whispering stories until the girl drifted off. But when Kylie finally closed her own eyes, she saw the mirror world again. Those stitched mouth faces, those hollow eyes, that endless laughter, her grandmother's laughter, and sometimes when the house was silent, Kylie's phone would buzz with a message from the same unknown number, just one word. Soon. Kylie never replied. She just held her daughter tighter, promising herself that no matter what came back, no matter how long this war dragged on, she would never let Stormi go, not to fame, Not to shadows, not even to blood, because some battles didn't end. They only waited,